So I was reading this book, Trump, Surviving at the Top. It was the sequel to Trump's first bestseller, The Art of the Deal, which he wrote 30 years ago. Trump wrote about his personal life in the mid-70s. He wrote a bit about Montreal and how he met his first wife, Ivana Trump, there. And he described the scene in Manhattan when he was a single guy. Let me read about a page of the book to you here. I'm quoting now from page 51. He says, "Wild things happened all the time back then, and nobody thought very much of it. For instance, one day, a friend called me at the office and said he needed to set up a date for a certain well-known married woman. This woman was visiting from out of town and was, he said, using a typical swinging 70s expression, really hot." I'm going to keep reading. I'm halfway done. This is from Trump, Surviving at the Top. He says, "I had a girlfriend at that time, and so did he. But I knew a guy named Ben who was very worldly wise. Ben, I was sure, could serve as this woman's escort and be discreet about it. I called him immediately, and though he said he was tired and had been planning to stay home that night, Ben eventually agreed, as a personal favor to me, to take this woman out. She turned out to be the wife of a man who was then the prime minister of a major country." Really? A wife of a major country's prime minister, partying like crazy in Manhattan in the mid-70s? Who could that possibly be? More now from the book. "I'd heard stories about this lady, but I never thought much of them until that night. We met at the house of the friend who'd phoned me. After we'd all chatted for a while in the living room, the four of us who already knew each other drifted out to the kitchen, leaving Ben and Madame X in the living room to get better acquainted. Which they did. In fact, when we drifted back in, about 10 minutes later, she and Ben were involved in an incredibly torrid scene on the couch. I remember standing there and thinking to myself, well, Donald, you're not in Queens anymore." Now, who knows? Wife of a major country's prime minister? That could be anybody, right? I mean, maybe he meant Victoria Brezhneva, the wife of the Soviet leader at the time. Maybe, here's a picture of Victoria from the 70s. All right, fine, it probably wasn't her. Maybe he meant the wife of the British Prime Minister at the time. Her name is Mary Wilson. Here's her picture in 1976. It could be, call me a skeptic. Here's Bernadette Chirac, wife of Jacques Chirac from France. It's the best picture I could find of her in the 60s, so the 70s she would be about a dozen years older. I don't think that's her. Maybe the wife of the Italian Prime Minister? There were two Prime Ministers in that period, Aldo Moro. Here's his wife, Eleonora. She was born in 1916, so she would have been 60 at the time Trump described. Probably not her. The other Italian PM was Giulio Andreotti. Here's his wife, Livia. Sort of hot, eh? Maybe that's the one. No. Not the woman in the middle. The late Mrs. Andreotti is the senior citizen on the left. She was born in 1921, and so she would have been mid-50s in Trump's tale. Here's what she looked like in the 70s. So who could it be? The wife of the German Chancellor, Helmut Schmidt? That's this lady, Loki Schmidt. She was born in 1919, so she would have been almost 60 when Trump was describing. So who could it be? Germany, France, Italy, Britain, Russia. None of it makes sense. Hey, apropos of nothing, Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau have so little in common. I mean, they're from two different worlds, two different generations. I wonder what they'll find to talk about during their first meeting. I wonder if they know anyone in common.
Maggie celebrates her wedding anniversary without Pierre. While he minds the kids, the flower child wife of the Prime Minister is partying.
Maybe they have some crazy stories to regale the other one with. Yeah. For the Rebel.media, I'm Ezra Levant. We talk a lot about Trudeau and Trump on this channel. Click here to subscribe, or click here to get my book, Trumping Trudeau.